when we think of a family unit, we can think of a tree, okay? It's made up of roots, which represent the parents within that family. And then we have the stem of the tree, which is the life that the parents are building. And then we have the branches, which will represent the children within that family. And then we have the leaves and the fruits or the seeds, which would represent the children's children, and so on and so forth. Okay, so when the tree's roots are corrupted somehow, it will affect the growth of that tree, right? The stem will be affected. Okay, this is essentially when there's fault within the parents, the life that they create will be affected. Okay, and this will end up affecting the branches, which are the children within that family, and then the children's children, the fruit and the leaves and the seeds and whatnot. Okay, everything will essentially be affected from the root being corrupted. Okay, so this is essentially how dysfunctional families are created. Okay, from a fault, I don't want to use the word fault, from some kind of malfunction within the parents, which will be the root of the tree. So it will affect the stem, affect the branches, affect the seeds, and affect everything. So from the parents' malfunction, it will affect the life that they create and the children within that life and those children's children. Okay, this is essentially how generational curses and generational trauma are created. Okay, in today's video, we're breaking down the typical dysfunctional family system. But before we get into that, I'd like to take a moment to say hello and welcome to everyone. If you're new here, I go by the name Inspire Seeker, and on this channel we discuss spirituality, personal development, and narcissism. So if any of that appeals to you, or if you feel called to, then by all means join us, and I promise you will not regret that decision. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, guys, we're breaking down the dysfunctional family unit and how the roles of the members of that unit are assigned. The roots of a tree can represent the parents within that family, all right? And the stem is the life that they create, okay? And the branches will be the children that they have within that family, and then the fruits will be the grandchildren, the seeds and the leaves and whatnot will be the grandchildren, essentially. Okay, so in a typical dysfunctional family, that dysfunction is usually created or usually arise out of either one parent or both parents. Okay, this could be in a form of a physical disability, mental health disability, some kind of addictive behavior, some kind of dysfunction within that parent. Okay, now in some families there's one parent, and in other families there are both parents present, but they're both dysfunctional, so it affects the children and the children's lives as well. Okay, so knowing this, let's take a look at how the typical dysfunctional family is structured. Okay, in a typical dysfunctional, toxic, narcissistic family unit, guys, you have the top, okay, which will represent the root of a tree, right? The top is the dysfunctional parents or dysfunctional parent, narcissistic parent or narcissistic parents. Okay, they represent the root. Okay, typically there's some kind of dysfunction with the parents or parent, and they refuse to take accountability for this dysfunction. Okay, so it ends up playing into the other members of the family, which in this case would be the children. Okay, as the tree analogy that I use, if there's something wrong with the root of the tree, it will affect the stem, it will affect the branches and the fruit and everything. So with the parents being dysfunctional, it will essentially affect the children within that family and possibly their children moving forward, because the parents refuse to acknowledge and accept responsibility for their dysfunction. So they will essentially shift the blame to another member of the family, okay, as to why the family is dysfunctional. Okay, and this will continue within that family eventually until that cycle is broken at some point. All right, so we have the top, which is usually the dysfunctional parent. It could be both parents being dysfunctional, one parent being dysfunctional and the other parent being an enabler, or only one parent being a narcissistic parent and controlling that family. Okay, controlling the members of that family. So now, from the top, which is the parents, now the dysfunctional parents or the narcissistic parent, we go to the golden child. Okay, the golden child is usually the model child. Okay, the model child, as in the child that's being groomed to be a representation of the parents or the parent. Okay, whether it's one narcissistic parent or both parents. But the golden child is essentially the child that's being groomed to be a model or a representation of that parent or both parents. Okay, so in the golden child, there are two. We have the natural golden child, which is the child who is favored, by the parents, or we have the hero child, which is the child who was not initially favored, but through hard work and dedication worked to accomplish more than what the original golden child accomplished, and so they ended up becoming the golden child. All right, this is usually referred to as the hero child, because they went out and through hard work and dedication they made something of themselves more than what the golden child did, and so they took that position. Okay, so in such a family setting, guys, as you can see, the parent or parents will create some kind of competition amongst the children. Okay, as in who's going to be the favorite child, right? This is how come you could get a golden child or a hero child, because the children are essentially competing to be the parent's favorite, to be the model child. Okay, so let's go a bit further into the golden child, guys. This child is usually the apple of the parent's eye, essentially. Okay, they are the model child. They are going to be a representation of that parent or both parents. Okay, and so they will keep a very close eye on this child, and they will essentially control aspects of this child's life just so they could be groomed to become just like the parent. Okay, you take a typical narcissistic parent, they'll probably make one of their daughters their golden child, and they will groom this child and they will control this child's life and essentially turn them into an image of themselves. Okay, so this is an example of a golden child. All right, they are essentially an extension of the parent or the parents. Okay, they're groomed to be just like them, they're groomed to behave just like them, they're groomed to represent them, essentially. Okay, so they keep them very close, they shelter them sometimes, and they favor them. Okay, they're the ones who get all the attention, they get all the gifts, all the admiration, they get the lion's share of everything that the parents have to offer. Okay, the golden child's main role is to make that parent or the parents proud, and so they're usually groomed and guided, or should I say controlled. Okay, so they essentially never fully mature into themselves. They never fully gain their independence because aspects of their lives are usually controlled by the parents or the parent, in order for them to stay in that role of being that role model, or being that model child, right? That represent a representation of that parent. Okay, so they're usually seen as the perfect child. No matter what it is they do, they could do wrong also, but even if they do wrong, they're usually seen still as a perfect child, because they're being groomed to be a representation of the parents, essentially. Okay, from there we have the scapegoat or the black sheep. Okay, the scapegoat or the black sheep is usually the sacrificial lamb of the family. Okay, this is the child that is usually picked on within that family, is usually bullied within that family. They're often quiet, they're very kind, they're very forgiving, they're very empathic, they're usually empaths, they're very intelligent. Okay, they're very strong-willed, and they could be on their own, and so they resist the control from the toxic parent, from the dysfunctional parents. They rebel against their control because they're usually a truth teller, and they can see the dysfunction within that family. Okay, but most of the time they're told not to speak on it. Okay, and when they do dare to speak on these things, they are usually punished for not listening. Okay, they're usually punished for voicing their opinions. Okay, so the scapegoat, guys, at some point was a golden child, but until they begin to rebel against the parent, and then they became the family garbage can. So now, not only are they being picked on by their siblings, not only are they being bullied and abused by their siblings, every time something goes wrong within that family, they will point to the scapegoat. Okay, because they've essentially become the bad kid within that family. So every time something goes wrong, they will look to them for answers. Okay, every time something bad happens within that family, they will essentially point to the scapegoat. Okay, but make no mistake, the scapegoat is usually, as I said, they usually embody some positive qualities. These qualities, positive qualities that they embody, usually make them feel like they're not part of that family. Okay, one of these qualities is being the truth teller. Okay, being the truth teller within a big family will usually get you isolated. Okay, being a truth teller in any group setting will usually get you isolated, essentially. Okay, so all of this contributes to how they become scapegoated or become the black sheep of the family. All right, also, some of these qualities that the scapegoat embodies draws a lot of jealousy and envy from the other members, from the siblings, and so all of these contribute to the siblings ganging up against the black sheep, picking on the black sheep, essentially abusing the black sheep and making them feel isolated. Okay, and so over time, as they're growing up, they will start to feel like they're not loved by their family. They'll start to feel like an outsider. They'll start to feel like they don't belong with the family. And so they will find ways to cope with this being excluded all the time. Okay, they're usually not invited. They're usually not included. They're usually not accepted. They're usually not celebrated. They often blamed. They often shamed. You know, they often picked on. They often abused. So all of this will essentially push them into isolation, and what they will do is they will self-isolate to protect themselves from being subjected to more pain or more abuse. Okay, so they will find independent activities to cope, because most of the time they're not allowed to play with the other children within that family. Okay, so the black sheeps are very intelligent, and you'll usually find them, you know, somewhere in a corner by themselves, reading a book, writing, doing art, painting, you know, studying. You know, they'll usually be doing independent individual activities because of how they've become accustomed to being excluded from playing with the rest of the siblings. Within that family, they stick out because they're just different. Okay, they may have a disability. They're just peculiar within that family. They're nothing like their siblings. And what makes this bad is that as the scapegoat grows up, guys, and ventures into society, they'll often find themselves scapegoated everywhere they go. Okay, they'll often find themselves filling that role of a scapegoat or a black sheep everywhere they go. And as they continue to find themselves in a black sheep position, in the scapegoated position, this can typically lead to self-destructing behaviors. Okay, this can lead to self-destructing behaviors, and if care is not taken, they could really go down deep down the rabbit hole of destruction. Okay, but on the other hand, they can become very productive and very powerful and very effective by embodying and speaking your truth, essentially, on the dysfunctional, on the abuse, on the toxicity. By being the truth teller, they can use the truth teller quality to get themselves out of the self-destructing behavior. Okay, so that's the black sheep or the scapegoat, guys. From there, we have the clown or the joker. This is the child who brings laughter to the family, essentially. Okay, they find ways to make light of the family's dysfunction. They find ways to make light of the family's situation. Okay, you think of some of these comedians who come up and talk about their families and stuff like that. They will essentially be the typical joker or the typical clown within a dysfunctional family. Okay, so they use that pain from that family and turned it into something positive. Okay, so this is the child that you will see always cracking jokes, always making people laugh. Every time there's a tense situation, they'll be the ones coming in to neutralize it by creating a joke or making people laugh or just making a fool of themselves, so people's attention will go to them rather than the real situation. The joker would become a productive member of society by capitalizing on their comical features, essentially, right? Because they've been doing it within the family for so long, so it'll be easy for them when they go out into society to go into those type of routes, comedy, okay? And that's like the example I made earlier, how some of these comedians come on set and tell jokes about their family members and whatnot. This is a typical joker character in a dysfunctional family system. Okay, so the joker can venture out into society and become productive by following their heart, essentially, by following what they know or by following what they've been doing within that family all along. Okay, so that's the joker, guys. The last member of a dysfunctional family is the lost one. Okay, the lost one. This is the child who finds peace in themselves, okay? They're so tired of the chaos within the family that they go inward to find peace within, okay? So they would often go within themselves whenever there's chaos in the family. And some ways this may manifest is by them running out of the house every time there's chaos, or finding a hiding place within that house every time there's chaos, and then re-emerging after the chaos is over, okay? The lost one usually distances themselves from the family, as in they may move to the other side of the country, or even to a whole nother country, place as much distance between them and the family to avoid having to deal with memories of the negative experiences that they had growing up, okay? The lost child is usually lost in themselves, okay? They will always go inward. They will always go inward. They will always go inward. And if care is not taken when they grow up, they will default to this and will not be able to express themselves as they should. Every time they're faced with a hard situation, they will have to withdraw and go inward rather than voicing their opinion or speaking up for themselves, okay? So that's a typical makeup of a dysfunctional family matrix, all right? This will help you identify where you stand within your family, whether you're the black sheep or the golden child, all right? So I hope I made it clear enough, guys. Take a moment to share your thoughts and your experiences in the comment section, and also share these messages with your loved ones. And if you're new here and you found value in it, then by all means stick around, because there should be another video or playlist popping up somewhere over here. Stick around and get more information on spiritual awakening and narcissism. Other than that, I'll leave this one here. Until next time, guys, peace, love, and more life.